Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority. 105.9 FM. AM 630.
WMAL. 8:07 on the Morning Majority. Brian Neiman, Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham in FM, loud and clear. And we have Tucker Carlson with us this morning of the Daily Caller, which, by the way, full disclosure, also employs me. How's it going, Tucker?
MKH. Good morning. Doing great.
Good morning. So the dust-up between the Daily Caller and Greta on Fox went to the Fox airwaves last night. How do we feel about how that went down? You guys picked at each other a bit there.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I had a good time. I like debating. I was grateful that Greta gave me a chance to do so on her show, and I thought, from my point of view, I don't think it could have gone better, so I was really happy with it.
Are you a little surprised that news people, a newswoman in particular, would object to the reporting of a story?
No. I mean, I remember when I worked at a newspaper, I was obviously the youngest guy there. I was 23, and one of my many jobs was to answer angry calls from viewers who were outraged that we were printing certain stories, and
right.
Mostly negative stories. We would get the same call over and over, which is, and anyone who works in a news organization gets this call, well, why did you print that? That's bad. And I was taught to say, well, when planes land safely, we don't actually cover it because that's normal. It's when something goes wrong that we write about it. And so, no, people are always complaining about that. I understand the words that Tyson used about Sarah Palin were horrible. And so I think maybe if you just write the headline, or if you weren't thinking it through, or if you don't understand how news works, you would imagine that, we're endorsing this or something. But, of course, the opposite was true. It was appalling, and that's why we wanted people to see it.
Just real quick, I want to add, I brought this up with the guys earlier, and I had an incident where a Playboy writer wrote a top 10 list of conservative women he'd like to have hate sex with. He did not use that term, right? And other outlets reported on this. And I can't imagine taking offense to the fact that they had reported on it, because I rather liked the fact that he was shown for exactly what he was. Now, you could quibble about, I suppose, the placement or the treatment of the story on the Daily Caller, but it seemed to me that the basic news value was solid.
Yeah. Well, I think that's right. I mean, that's certainly how we felt. There's another trend going on in American life that does baffle me, and it's a trend toward whining on the right. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons I'm not a liberal is I don't like whining. And, life is unfair and bad things do happen, and you should just suck it up and deal with it in a cheerful way. That's kind of what it always meant to be conservative. And liberals, by contrast, are always claiming that they were under assault because of their race or their gender, ethnicity, whatever. They were always whining and hoping for special exemptions and telling you it wasn't their fault and the dog ate their homework. And they were... And conservatives were sort of, they'd man up and deal with it. And for some reason, that has changed really dramatically. I don't know why. I don't know what happened. But increasingly, I hear conservatives say things like, well, you're a sexist. I disagree with you. Therefore, you must be biased in some way, sort of appropriating the worst ticks of the left as their own. And I don't know where to go. I'm not going to become a liberal. I disagree with them. But I'm embarrassed by it. I think it's pathetic and disgusting. And I hope that so-called conservatives who engage in this take a good look in the mirror and realize that they're not worthy of the term conservative.
Well, do you think this is a Sarah Palin issue, though? I mean, that is people who defend her.
That's part of it. I mean, definitely, that's definitely part of it. I'm not sure it's Palin's fault. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But certainly a lot of her fans.
Right.
I actually don't have strong feelings about Sarah Palin one way or the other. I mean, she's not running for president. I don't know. She seems fine to me. I don't really care. But a lot of people who have strong feelings about Sarah Palin tend to, rather than argue the case or argue about ideas, tend to go right to the sexism card. But you see it more broadly among conservative activists lately, and it's very, very distressing. No whining. Let's just make it really clear. Conservatives have no right to whine. Stop complaining. If you don't like something, change it.
Tucker, I just hate it that you two kids are squabbling. I mean, can't we all just kiss and make up? And by the way, let me just say, if my good friend Greta Van Susteren is listening out there, Greta, we would offer you an opportunity to be on this program if you want to come and say your side of the story again. Tucker, as for the president's new deficit reduction plan, your thoughts?
Well, it's the idea that, this tiny group of rich people, the populations of Santa Monica, Jackson Hole, and the Upper East Side are going to pay for everything that happens in America. is
My Social
ludicrous.
Security is safe.
First of all, it's like unfair. No person should pay a higher percentage in taxes than any other person. We're all citizens. That I think that's wrong to begin with. But as a practical matter, it doesn't work. Basically, if you tax rich people too much, they'll just leave. They did it in France in '81 when Mitterrand became in charge. He was a socialist. A lot of rich people just moved to Switzerland. They don't want to deal with it. They're mobile. By the way, they have their own planes. Like, they can split, and they do.
Yeah, it happened in Maryland.
It happened in Maryland. That's exactly right.
Yeah. So we're down to. Are we down to two when it comes to Republicans? Is it Mitt Romney versus Rick Perry, or is there a possibility that somebody can come up? I think it was Byron York or somebody wrote the other day that when they were watching the debate, they still keep going back to this guy Newt Gingrich and say, you know what, he's still the smartest guy on that stage.
Well, he is, and he's certainly the best debater, for sure. I mean, Newt Gingrich is interesting and worth listening to, and he often says things that are not on the talking points that he just kind of seems to believe, which makes him a whole lot more interesting than your conventional presidential candidate. It's hard to see how he gets elected. I love the fact he's running. I honestly have no evidence for this, really, but I don't think this is the current field. I don't think Republican voters are excited about these two candidates. Some are, but their support is not deep at all, and I still think there's room for someone else to get in the next 2 weeks. I do believe that. Probably be wrong. I've been wrong a lot, but it would not shock me if someone else got in.
Why do you put the 2 weeks label on it?
Well, because, at some point you're going to have ballot access problems.
Yeah.
I think Virginia is like the first week of November. You've got to have 10,000 signatures to go on the ballot there, and there are a lot of other states whose deadlines are fast approaching. But I still think there's time, and thanks to internet organizing and fundraising, you can get a series of money bombs going and get pretty well funded pretty fast. Obama did it 3 years ago. It could be done.
And there's also this talk about perhaps somebody challenging Barack Obama. Or we had John Fund on our show saying a group of Democrats going to the president and saying, Mr. President, it's not working for you, it's not working for our party. In the best interest of moving Democratic/liberal agendas forward, you need to not run for a second term. Any possibility of that actually happening, Mr. Carlson?
That would make my day. It's hard to see, A, who would replace Obama, and B, who in the Democratic Party would actually organize to do that. My read is, I don't want this to be true, but it seems to be, that Obama has actually unified his base pretty successfully. I don't see a splintered Democratic Party. He has not betrayed the left of the Democratic Party. He hasn't actually done anything wrong from their point of view, except be unpopular with swing voters, which he very much is. But other than that, he hasn't committed any sins. I don't see him challenged from the left.
All right, Tucker Carlson with the Daily Caller. Man in the middle of controversy and a fight with Greta Van Susteren. I think you got a little reach on her, but she's scrappy.
She is tough. I agree.
Yeah. All right, Tucker. Good
Thanks,
to see
Tucker.
you. Thanks for being
You're the
by.
best.